Our next speaker is Margaret Miller, Director and Chief Information Officer from the New York State Office of Information Technology Services. Welcome, Director Miller.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Young, Chairman Farrell, and distinguished members of the Legislature. I'm Margaret Miller, the state's Chief Information Officer and Director of Information Technology Services. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and share our request for budget expenditure and our plans for ITS. The 2016-17 Governor's Executive Budget includes $567 million in general fund support to enable ITS to provide consolidated statewide information technology services. The Executive Budget also includes $85 million in capital funds for IT innovation in enterprise-level applications and programs. This funding will allow ITS to continue the progress of the state's multi-phase, multi-year IT transformation to make government work smarter for citizens, to spur economic growth, and make the state more accessible to business. We've encountered and will continue to encounter challenges in this multi-year journey, but those challenges don't deter us. Rather, they inspire us to be even more creative, innovative, and dedicated to achieving service excellence and the best possible experience for our citizens. Our transformation progresses in multiple phases. First, there was consolidation, then stabilization, and now transformation of the citizen experience. At every stage, plans have been created based on the best information available at that time, and then we've been agile in adapting these plans whenever we need to, as we learn more about the challenges we face. Each phase requires a different focus, different capabilities, and different partners, but has built inexorably on the previous one. Having made significant progress with building a sound technology and infrastructure foundation, we're beginning to shift our focus now to transforming the whole life cycle experience of our citizens to one that they have the right to expect in the digital era. We're bringing together what was once a highly decentralized, inefficient IT structure across more than 50 disparate agencies into a single agency that is ITS. We can now work to maximize the tremendous talent in the workforce, standardize the myriad systems and applications implemented in each agency, and create an environment in which ITS can leverage IT investments across all state government, adopt industry best practice, and enhance service delivery to our partner agencies, businesses interacting with the state, and the citizens New York State serves, providing needed services more rapidly and cost-effectively to fuel the innovation economy. In the 16-17 fiscal year, in addition to our continuing program of work to support the mission of the agencies, our transformation program will focus on a number of broad areas. We'll continue to drive up the maturity continuum of operational excellence, adopting standard best practice processes and tools to deliver reliable, secure services at the minimum cost to the taxpayer. One of the benefits of the Governor's IT Transformation Program, which created ITS, is that we now have visibility to the risks inherent in our whole infrastructure. During the consolidation and stabilization phases
Director, could I ask a favor? Could you get a little bit closer to the microphone? Thank you. If you could pull the mic a little closer.
I'm short.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. One of the benefits of the Governor's IT Transformation Program, which created ITS, is that we now have visibility to the risks inherent in our infrastructure. During the consolidation and stabilization phases of the IT transformation, it became clear that a significant technology debt had accumulated over many decades of underinvestment across the state, creating operational, legal, and financial risks. During 16-17, we'll be prioritizing a significant investment of funds, in fact approximately $40 million, and resources to eliminate this debt. ITS continues cybersecurity improvements in 2016 with key programs to address cyber risk and comply with industry best practice standards of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, which is part of the US Department of Commerce, and ISO standards and regulatory rules for all agencies we support. ITS carries over a comprehensive NIST 8000.53 assessment from 15 into 16 and a comprehensive NIST Top 20 Cyber Controls assessment. These two assessments will be the primary baseline used to guide a risk-based investment and cybersecurity best practice improvement through 16 and beyond. ITS is engaging key suppliers and organizations and the New York State Intelligence Center, the NISIC, to assist in implementation of our enterprise-wide programs, close high-risk gaps, and guide the deployment of cybersecurity best practice. With the cybersecurity functions centralized under ITS, the state can implement the policies consistently and react swiftly across all IT assets when we receive intelligence about potential threats. Our current technology landscape has been created over decades by more than 50 different agencies, each entirely focused on their own mission, without a unifying vision of the citizen experience or the underlying technologies or data strategies. The resulting environment is massively complex and expensive to support reliably and securely. We also have significant staffing challenges due to this complexity. The skills of our staff are locked into skill silos, leading to excessive spend on third parties and an inability to offer the most exciting career paths to our brightest and best, too many of whom are stuck supporting legacy technologies. Most importantly, this complexity leads to a negative citizen experience. To address these issues, we're building a set of strategic platforms comprising a portfolio of tools and services which not just individually, but as an integrated set, will deliver an enhanced citizen experience across all agencies. Our staff are a vital asset in delivering the best possible service to our citizens, businesses, partner agencies, and other digital visitors to New York State. We have much to do to ensure that all team members have the opportunity to reach their potential and make the greatest contribution to our transformation program. We plan then to focus on a number of initiatives with regard to our staff. We'll increase the frequency and quality of our team communication at all levels to ensure team members understand the overall ITS strategy and how their work contributes to the mission of ITS and our partner agencies. We'll ensure our training and development plans are closely aligned with our transformation strategy and that team members have the skills needed to be effective and to progress in their careers. We'll implement an intensive hiring program to ensure we're bringing in sufficient new team members to allow us to fulfill our objectives and allow existing team members to progress in their careers. And we will continue to seek ways we can reward and promote outstanding talent. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and share our plans. I welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you, Director. Our first speaker is Senator Croce.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Miller, for joining us today. The department that you head, is it statutorily charged with providing the protection of the state's, our entire state government's cybersecurity infrastructure, including but not limited to identification, mitigation of vulnerabilities, as well as deterring and responding to cyber events and promoting cyber awareness? Is that the statutory charge?
Well, we took over the responsibilities that were formerly with Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, as you know. And they, under Section 715 of the Executive Law, the core mission of their Office of Cybersecurity was to protect the state's executive agency cybersecurity infrastructure and to provide coordination of policies, standards, and programs related to cybersecurity. And they did that in three different ways. They had information security management, managed security services, and a cyber incident response team. Those were the functions that we took over from them. They never had enforcement functions. Those were always split between multiple agencies, and hence the creation of the Fusion Center. So those are the three functions that we took over, as well as the geographical information services that we took from. Would it be helpful if I explained how the responsibility now splits?
I think you just answered the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Could you describe for me a typical, you were talking about some staffing challenges. Can you describe for me a typical cyber team, an employee? Do they have delegated roles and responsibilities when they're hired? How do they work together? Do they work in teams? Do they work independently? And do they have other roles other than their cyber roles? Are they doing some other IT-related work that's outside the scope of cyber?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say how delighted I am that we've just managed to hire a new Chief Information Security Officer, Jim Garrett, who's with us here today. And he joins us with a very distinguished career in cybersecurity and was formerly Chief Information Security Officer with 3M and Ingram Micro. He has a great pedigree. And he is currently reorganizing his team has been pleasantly surprised at the caliber of staff that we have. In answer to your direct question, they are a dedicated team and have no other responsibilities for other aspects of ITS. Their role is very much focused on cybersecurity, which is forefront in all our minds.
Okay. We actually had a hearing on this last May 20th, and you were invited to testify. Is there any reason why you didn't come to testify at the hearing last May 20th? I know your office was invited. And I believe Dr. Bloniar is the individual who was here, but
that's right.
I think he came from the governor's staff, not from yours.
That's right. In fact, Professor Bloniars was at that point fulfilling multiple roles. So as you know, he chairs the Governor's Advisory Committee, but that was before our new Chief Information Security Officer was appointed, and he was interim in that role also. So that's why we felt that he was probably the best person to come and testify.
Okay, but you were aware that you were invited to testify?
I'm sure I was at the time. I don't remember, to be honest, but we honestly felt, out of respect for your time, that we should send the person best capable to answer your questions.
Is Dr. Bloniars here today?
I'm not sure if he's physically in the room, but I know he's watching.
Very good. What, if anything, has been done in the past year since we've seen now over a process of about 2 years the integration from DHSES into ITS? Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting case study since the executive budget proposes a similar consolidation or transfer of individuals from DHSES now to the state police, of course in a different function. So I'm curious as to the success. If anything, what has been done in the past year? Do you have success stories in response to any cyber attacks that have occurred? And based on what's transpired with the attacks on the federal government, OPM, and then of course in the commercial industry, what have we done as a state to protect our infrastructure? Do you have any success stories that you can discuss about how this transfer of responsibilities has been cut off? That means it's time for me to stop talking.
Keep going.
Go
Keep going, Senator.
So, first of all, I'd like to speak to the role of ITS versus Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services previously. It would have been very difficult previously because DISHES would only have sight of a small piece of the life cycle, if you will, of cybersecurity. ITS manages the infrastructure and that houses the data that we're trying to protect, of course. So we are able to look across the whole NIST life cycle of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. We can see across the whole piece. And so it's far easier for us both to make sure that the systems that we're building are built to a high standard of security, so we can build that in from the get-go, for us to be able to see potential threats, for us to protect our environment, to make sure that it's fully hardened, that we're up to speed with patching, and that we've implemented the best possible protections, and then to detect any attempted intrusions, and then to help recover when they do happen. What I would say is that I guess the success is that we haven't had, touching wood, hope I'm not tempting fate, any major intrusion events. We monitor on a daily basis for attempts, and we too record a high number of attempts to penetrate our security. But we have not had any very significant intrusion exposures.
One final question. Are you aware if your department is fully compliant with the statutory set-asides for minority-owned, women-owned, and service-disabled veteran businesses?
Yes, I'm afraid I don't have the number at the tip of my fingers, but actually we exceed the number by a significant amount.
Okay. Very good. And you mentioned staffing silos. So could you please explain to me how you're overcoming those challenges?
Right. We have a staffing crisis looming with a huge number of retirements, which will see a great many very experienced staff lost from state service.
Specifically with regard to cyber ability?
No, with regard to the overall IT environment. And one of the ways we will address this is to focus and standardize on a smaller number of technologies, which will make it far easier for us to share expertise across all agencies. At the moment, we have staff who are specialists in a large or small numbers of staff who are specialists in a huge number of different technologies, which isn't good for their career path, and it isn't good for providing the best, most cost-effective service. So by standardizing on a smaller number of key technologies, we can both provide a better career path for them and provide a better service.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman?
Director, thank you for being here. I too wanted to actually pick up where Senator Croce had left off in regards to, I was struck by your comments about the skills of our staff are locked into silos. It sounded as if there was a resistance to change, but I don't think that's what you meant. Is that correct?
No, I apologize if that's how it sounded. No, indeed. It's not a resistance to change, quite the opposite. It has to do with the fact that we have this huge complexity in our environment, which we are addressing through standardizing. But we also have a problem with experience. As I said, we will lose, in the next few years, we'll lose 25% of our staff through retirements. And that means that the average experience level will go, at the most senior levels, will go from 40 years to 11 years. Now, expertise, of course, is a mixture of training plus experience. Just as you wouldn't take a doctor straight out of med school and make them head of brain surgery, we need a combination of training plus experience. And because we see that huge skills gap, it results in us having to rely very heavily on contract staff. We currently have 1,200 contract staff that cost the state $245 million a year. Because we rely on them for that mid-level of expertise that includes the required experience. And that means that the more junior folk aren't able to progress. I would love to find a way of increasing the permanent staff in those middle levels, maybe through insourcing that we were able to do some years ago, or other initiatives that we might agree with the unions and with civil service that would allow us to inject expertise into the middle ranks and reduce our dependence on very expensive contractors. So we would really look to find a way of doing that, and by that means we would be able to release those more junior staff from those silos and be able to give the best opportunities to our brightest and best staff, which is something I very passionately believe in.
I think that speaks into your final comments about staff development. And I will say, particularly being a member from the Capital Region, I represent many great, fine people who have been part of those silos for years that do want to advance their skills and want to be given the opportunity. And I also respect the complexity of technology, that there are going to be times when you do need the specialist, but we don't want to make the specialist the norm at all costs possible. I think one of the great things about experience that you talk about is there are many people who can say, oh yeah, we've done that before, and here's why it didn't work, or here's how it may work.
Right.
So I am encouraged by your comments about increasing development and training. I would think that would mean, particularly for our current workforce that is in place, that has the opportunity, but also recruitment, which indicates to me that we will be hiring more staff to help move things along. Is that a correct assessment? And does this budget proposal support that in regards to positions and also training and development dollars?
I believe we have the appropriate budget to hire the staff that we were in a position to hire. Of course, they have to be entry level. The skills gap is in the middle, and and at the senior levels, and that's what's the problem.
So, to address the skills gap, is the funding for development and training going to help address some of that?
To address the training part, it's the experience that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Senator Nizzolio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. I guess we're getting into the evening. I must admit, I believe you've been before the General Finance Committees in the past. I believe you testified before us. Is that not correct?
Last year, yes. That's shortly after I joined.
Last year, I didn't pay much attention to what you said at all. This year, I've listened to every word. It is a different day in this nation and in the world. Senator Croce began this discussion. The cyber attacks to agencies of the federal government that are generally well protected show that they weren't so well protected. I don't doubt that for a second you've had managerial issues. It sounds as though you have addressed a number of those issues during your tenure. But I want to probe in the time I have on cybersecurity and what role that is playing within the information technology that you manage, and that you casually indicated that there have been a high-level number of attempts to develop security breaches in our area. Any particular aspect of that data?
No,
for instance, Department of Motor Vehicles, the park system, taxation and finance. What levels of attack, and what type of data are you referring to?
We experience the same sort of attacks and the same categories of attacks as the general business population. In fact, we work with the multi-state ISEC, as do dishes and state police, to garner intelligence about what's happening in the broader world, and we see exactly the same level of attack and same nature of attack as the general business community.
And the general business community has, over the last 12 months, as you know, in New York State, experienced a huge amount of data breaches.
Indeed, indeed. So we adopt a stance of...
So you've achieved then a huge amount of data breaches. Is that what you're telling us?
No, not at all. No, we experience a huge number of attempts. So there are a large number of attempted attacks on our environment.
Thank you for clarifying that. Where are the attempts being made? Where are they centered?
They vary very widely. I wouldn't single out any one source. In fact, our posture is to be vigilant whatever the source. And we remain, I would say, confidently paranoid.
You feel well, that's good. Do you have a priority, though? You said in your testimony that you're understaffed and basically overworked. What then are we establishing as priorities within your department?
Right. The biggest priority we have is cybersecurity. And as you will see, we've increased the budget very significantly in cybersecurity over the last few years. And the governor himself and members of the governor's staff have repeatedly asked whether we are spending enough. Our judgment is that we have the right budget for this year, but it's been made very clear to us that should we require additional funding, we should ask for it.
Well, you indicate that 2016, the improvements you've made, and your testimony says that you established key programs to address cyber risk and comply with industry best practices. What steps have been taken to achieve that objective?
Let me list out some of it. So, first of all, we're aggressively remediating all out-of-date hardware and software that could pose a risk to our environment. We've engaged third-party experts to assess our cyber control risk related to regulated data and third-party managed data. And then we focus on the most sensitive citizen data and data regulated by law to ensure that these NIST controls are in place for that data as a priority. We also make sure that the legal contractual language for any third parties we use reflects the best standards of regulatory control and best practice. And we also are implementing a comprehensive risk management program to raise the visibility and track mitigation of high-risk areas of weakness. And we're also making significant process improvements in areas such as the Enterprise Cyber Command Center, Enterprise Risk Assessments, Enterprise Identity Management, and so forth, which are the cornerstones of a best practice cybersecurity program.
Are you a cybersecurity expert yourself?
I am not, sir. That's why.
Have you had any cybersecurity experience in other positions prior to your becoming IT head?
No, I have experience extensively as a Chief Information Officer, and that's why I'm very pleased that we've hired Jim Garrett, as I mentioned earlier, as our Chief Information Security Officer.
What experts, you said you deployed experts. Does that mean your agency is contracted with experts in the field?
Yes.
For consultant purposes?
Yes.
Who have you consulted with?
We're currently working with Deloitte.
With, pardon me, Stewart? I couldn't hear.
Repeat the name.
With Deloitte.
Oh, Deloitte. What additional steps have you suggested to the agencies that hold the most private of information,
Right.
particularly the tax department, the health department? What have your technology people done with the technology people from those departments to establish appropriate firewall safeguards, industry best practices certainly, but is Deloitte, are they giving your agency consulting expertise and suggestions with additional infrastructure to establish within the IT system?